Meeting on this day of July 27th, 2025 in Doylestown, PA at Monday night, 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Stuff meeting at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Matt, and they are sharing their experience and speaking on step 2. Let's welcome Matt.
My name is Matt. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
I was told the first 15 minutes I'm supposed to qualify, which always seems odd because I feel like qualifying is what you do in a race when you're trying to win. This is not something I want at. I did stop drinking 183 days ago. I can tell you that in 183 days, I have not taken 2,939 shots. I have not spent $18,371. But in order to get there, I have to tell you where it started. I grew up in a really good family. I didn't have like a bad upbringing. I didn't have a broken family. We had a really loving home. My parents worked really hard. My parents are from opposite ends of the state. My dad grew up in Germantown. He started working when he was like 10 years old, sweeping the butcher floor. Then he worked his way through deli and all that stuff up until he actually became the chief financial officer of Brown Superstores. Man, killed it. He learned every single thing and put himself through school at night, also paying for his brothers and sister to go to school. Put his sister through law school, all while working in the grocery store. My mom's a nurse. She grew up in Cole County. If anybody knows where Knoebels Grove is, my mom worked there. Her first job when she was 7 years old, because my mom's a little tiny woman. She can come up to my chest, but I am afraid of that woman because I know she can kill me. My mom's first job was to crawl through the vents of the laundromat to clear out the lint. Yeah. So, started working young. I mean, my parents were absolute workaholics in the best sense. When they had kids, which they were loving parents too, that meant that they worked really hard. So we lived with a babysitter during the week, and then we were home with them on the weekends. So Sunday, they dropped us off. We lived with a babysitter until Friday night. Friday night, they'd pick us up, and they spoiled us on the weekends, and they dropped us back off on Sunday. We never really thought there was anything wrong with that. And finally, when we became teenagers, we moved home. My brother Stevie was 16, my brother Mike was 14, and I was 12. It worked well. They still kind of had their own way of doing things at home. My dad hadn't really changed the concept that kids were around as much, and that became a little bit awkward. My parents bought our house because it was really good for parties. They understood that really well, and they bought a house for parties. About a year into owning the house, my dad's wedding ring was stolen. It was like the type of place that we had a bar room in the house all the time. At the age of 12, my dad taught me how to make a perfect Rob Roy. And his thing was it should look just like iced tea, so when you put it in the glass, Mom can't tell the difference. Now, the beautiful point of this was, now that I understood this, that he had no idea how much liquor was in the cabinet. I could get to it anytime I wanted. Became really important shortly later because my brother decided to have his friend over every weekend now that we could. And my brother's friend decided he wanted to check out his sexuality, but he didn't want to do it in a way that hurt him, so instead he hurt me. That progressively went on for a couple years. I tried to tell my brother, and he said that he wouldn't do that to me, because he was like a brother to him. Kind of a hurtful thing to hear from your brother. So when I went to try to tell my parents, my brother said he was just trying to get attention. It's one of those things that happens in life, and what I would just do is when he came over, I'd just drink until I couldn't feel it anymore. Became my way of dealing with things. By the time I was 14, I just knew every Friday night I was going to drink. And by the time I got to high school, I had a Camelback. A Camelback is like one of those backpacks with a straw, has a hydration thing. I just put half a fifth of vodka and a quart of orange juice in it and drink it throughout the school day. That's how I started getting through school days. I got in trouble my sophomore year when I got caught with that, but luckily the person that caught me was my football coach, who was also an alcoholic. So his deal was, as long as I filled his cup, he'd let me go. In fourth or fifth period, I could sleep off in his office as long as I was ready for football practice. It worked for me. I graduated high school with 4.3 GPA and 15 credits in college. So, didn't do too bad. Got done there, went to college. Went to Penn State, started studying at Penn State, got kicked out of there for drinking. Decided, that wasn't the school for me. It had to be the school, so I'll go to a different school. So I went to Shippensburg. I decided to join a fraternity at Shippensburg. The night I got into my fraternity, I got blackout drunk. And luckily, I decided to go to bed. But they woke me up. When they woke me up, they asked me a question. I can tell you, when somebody asks you this question, you have 3 potential answers. The first answer is you're honest with yourself and them, and you say no, and you walk away. Second one, be sarcastic, say yes, and walk away. Don't do what I did, which is the third one, say, I don't know, let me find out. Question was, can you chug a handle of SoCo 100? I found out that 3 minutes and 27 seconds, I can chug a handle of SoCo 100. Now, mind you, I was already blackout drunk when I did it, so I'm told that I was really fun for about 45 minutes. It wasn't fun when I stopped breathing. It wasn't fun when they called 911. It wasn't fun when I went to the hospital and they had to call my parents because I was on a ventilator with my BAC at 0.49. You know, at that point, most people would say, I should really stop drinking. I said, I should really stop drinking SoCo. So I moved on to drinking other things. You know, throughout this entire time, my family was always very supportive. If you need help, we'll get it for you. If you need help, we'll get it for you. That becomes important later on. You know, I started drinking other things because I figured, you know, okay, that'll be better. So I went from SoCo, and I started drinking Bacardi and Coke with a double shot of Jägermeister because I'm Polish and Prussian. I figured, you know, that shows a little bit of my heritage. We should be okay. The one night I was out with my girlfriend downtown, how many times have I personally asked myself, God, if I really should stop drinking, give me a sign? Well, one time I was downtown with my girlfriend. At one point, the bartender ripped a sign off the wall and handed it to me. I said, what's this for? He goes, we never realized how much you actually drink. So we had your own bottles tonight. And so far tonight, you've killed a bottle of each. And you are still one of the most sober people here. We're not sure how much you can drink. We just know you can. The sign was a black metal sign. I found it actually when I came home from rehab. And I look at it in a different sense now. It's a black metal sign that has a green Jaeger bottle underneath. And underneath in text it says, my dark side. Many times God tried to tell me you should really get help, and I just said no. After I graduated college, I decided I did not want to be home, mostly because my parents started realizing how much I drank and they were concerned with it. So I took a job down in Florida. I worked for a company that is run by a mouse with a whole bunch of characters. If you can't figure out what that is, it's Disney. I worked for Disney Culinary, then I worked for Recreation, and then I helped work on some of the designs for a new park in Shanghai. I absolutely loved it, but my brothers decided to start having like families and kids, and I didn't want to be the weird uncle that lived in Florida, so I decided to come home. Came home, kept drinking, got worse and worse. Just progressively started going down the rabbit hole. I'd lose jobs from it. I really, really got good at hiding it at work because what I would do is I wouldn't drink at work or I wouldn't be drunk at work. Work was kind of like the mental countdown. I would make sure that I was sober when I got there, but there was a clock in my mind that 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock is happy hour and I am not going to miss a minute of it. So that's what I would do. I'd get up, I'd go to work sober, I'd work all day, and I'd leave directly at 3:55 to make sure I was at the bar in time, and I would drink until I couldn't remember. You know, a lot of people ask the question of, like, how does drinking make you feel? My answer was, it didn't. I literally drank to numb myself and to numb all the pain and everything in my mind. I have an overactive mind, overactive imagination, and it's one of those things that liquor just finally shut it off. You know, I worked for Disney, I worked for Comcast, I've worked for a lot of major companies, and I can literally say I pissed away opportunities to really crawl up and to have a great career. I would literally turn down promotions and new roles because they interrupted happy hour. I started working 3 years ago at a company right around the corner from my house because the job before that was farther away and I started being late to happy hour. So I got a job with less pay, but closer to my bar and closer to happy hour. I took that job and I work in logistics for a company that does manufacturing. My job is to make sure that everything gets out to the door. And my customers aren't small. My customers are the Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply store. If you walk into one of those stores and go to the tool rental center, anything red, green, or orange probably came off the floor that I work on. I actually really enjoy my job. I enjoy the people I work with and all that, but it gets stressful, especially during certain times of the year when we have to get stuff out the door. And this year it hit me harder than ever. The last 3 years, right after I got this job and I really enjoyed it, my father passed away. And when he passed away, I can tell you that I checked out because he was my best friend, man. I used to stay up late watching TV with him and try to find all the weird idiosyncrasies of the world. He had an aspect of absolute brilliance and kindness. He was one of those people that they say, like, whatever he says to you, like, his word is as good as gold, and you can take it to the bank. I can tell you that I was none of that. You couldn't count on what I was saying. It was pretty much whatever I said was what made me happy. When I lost him, I decided I was going to crawl into the bottle because I couldn't crawl into the casket. And I did. I was up to the point where I was spending $100 to $150 a day at the bar. I did the math, and in the 25 years that I drank, I spent a little bit over $750,000. And I was okay with that, because at least I had friends at the bar, right? Well, until the money ran out. Work got stressful, life got stressful, and I decided that I needed to get help. But that came on the day of a really bad bender. I was supposed to be at work at 7 a.m. on a Saturday because we were falling behind. I got there, and I realized that the boss had canceled overtime because we actually did pretty good at catching up. But I decided I was going to check myself into the bar because I already said I was going to be at work for a half day. So from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m., I went to the bar, and I finished 2/5 of vodka. Finally, the bartender said, "I can't serve you anymore. You should go home." I got in my car, and I was staring at the back of the building, and I just really contemplated driving my car into it. It was at that point I decided that I needed help. I went home. My mom had just gotten out of the hospital. She had been there for 37 days. She was only home for about a week. And I said to her, I was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And she goes, "I need to talk to you too." I said, "Okay." So "Can I go first?" And she goes, "Sure." So "I really think I need help." She goes, "Okay. Why?" So I just contemplated driving my car into a building. She goes, "Yeah, it's probably time. It's been time for a long time, but I'm glad you're seeing it." Meanwhile, my brother and my aunt and uncle were at the house, and they were busy going through the financials from the family and realizing how badly I had abused the family checkbook. At the time, that was my mom. My mom was in the hospital. I spent about $20,000 just on drinking. And, yeah, it was bad. I checked myself into Livingston. When I called to say I needed help, I talked to the insurance company, and they're trying to send me to one of those Florida or California locations because you know how those things work out. I said, "No, I really don't think if I check myself into one of those right now, I'm ever going to have a place in this family again. They're already calling this version of rehab vacation. I don't think that's going to work too well." And when I called Livingston, they said they had a spot available. When could I come in? I said, "Well, I've been drinking. I really shouldn't be driving. I think I'm going to take a nap, and I'll call you back tomorrow." They said, "We'll send an Uber. It'll be there in 2 hours." And thank God they did. And they told me to pack for 7 days. So I was like, all right. I got to detox, and I spent 2.5 days sleeping in detox. And finally on my third day, I said, "Yeah, I think I'm good. I can go home now." Like, "No. You haven't even begun this process yet." I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm here for 7 days. I've been here for 3. I'm halfway through. We're good." They're like, "You're not here for 7 days." I was like, No, you told me to pack for 7 days. You're going to do laundry multiple times while you're here." And I'm glad I stayed. I had 2 people that already talked me out off the bridge, basically. And I stayed. And I'm glad I did. I opened my ears and shut my mouth, which I hadn't done in a long, long time. My parents say that I have the ability to talk a cat off a fish truck. And I do. I can tell you the story. I can sell an Eskimo ice. I'm one of those people. But the thing is I can either put my talents to good or bad. And for the longest time, I was putting it to bad. Nothing really dangerous to anybody else unless it was me driving behind the wheel. But bad in the sense that it was all about me. And if it affected you, I didn't care. This program has given me the opportunity to kind of do an introspection. And that's one of the biggest things. I have the opportunity tonight, and I'll shortly get to it, is talking on step 2. But in order to get to step 2, first I take step 1, and I do it every morning. Before I even get out of bed, I say step 1 to myself. I'm powerless over alcohol, and my life has become unmanageable. I think unmanageable is an understatement, but, I'm definitely powerless over alcohol when I don't have another spirit to replace it with. That's when step 2 became very important. Step 2 talks about, I came to believe in a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. There's a lot in that little sentence that a lot of people don't realize. Came to believe is really an important part. Step 2 can be a killer to people that aren't really ready for it. Because a lot of people don't understand the aspects of spirituality versus religion. And if you've been burnt by religion, spirituality can be hard to find. Many of us face that dilemma, absolute helping. We're fine admitting that we're absolutely helpless and couldn't do anything. But the second God came into the conversation, we're like, oh no, not him again. Not realizing that in reality he was always there. The good thing about step 2 that I found is there's 3 really big points that they make about step 2. 1, AA does not demand any type of belief. It is not for Catholics. It's not just for Christians. It's not for Lutherans, Methodists. You don't have to believe in any organized religion. You don't have to have any specific belief. Really, all it says is you have to believe in a power greater than yourself. Because for the longest time, none of us did. I know that I did not believe that there's anything greater than me. I was the center of the universe, and you were all just playing the roles. There's a weird portion that when we think about life, that each of us are just a whole bundle of molecules, and for some reason they came together in a very specific pattern that allows us to think. We are made from the same stuff that these tables, this carpet, these chairs, and everything else is, just in a different pattern. And yet, we have the ability to think. Number 2 about what AA says is you do not, in order to get sober and stay sober, you don't have to fully accept step 2 immediately. That's why it says came to believe. It doesn't say fully believe. It says came to believe. The 3rd is that all you need is an open mind. One of the biggest things that will crush anybody in any form of addiction is a closed mind. Because the second I close myself off from the ability to think, to change, to listen, and all of that, I am already gone. And in a sense, in our worst parts of addiction, we really are all dead. True. The beauty is that once you start to rebuild, you can come back to life. I listen to a lot of comedy. I don't know if anybody's ever listened to Ron White. He's another very famous comedian. And he talks about, he had a tree and it was dead. And he brought somebody in to look at the tree. And he goes, this tree is dead. And the guy scratched the bark and goes, the core of this tree is alive. He goes, let me tell you what I'm looking for in a tree. That's sadly kind of the way we are. Our cores were still alive, but on the outside and everybody else, we were dead. We were growing that fungus on the outside of us, sometimes from not shower, from not bathing, because we committed ourselves so much to ourselves that we didn't care about anyone else. But as long as you have an open mind, you can continue on. AA is a spiritual program. It replaces the spirit of alcohol with a more sustainable source of power and strength. Jung once said a very important thing. He said, alcoholics have the right thirst for the wrong spirit. And there is nothing more true than that. Alcoholics are not stupid people. They're not powerless. They're not down. They're not out. We're actually some of the most intelligent people out there, because how many of you have been broke and broken but still found a way to pay for the bar tab, or at least get away with it for a while? Beautiful thing about this program is, as I said, it is spiritual, but it is not religious. And a lot of people don't understand what the difference is, so I'll put it into this aspect. How many people in here like ice cream? How many people will only eat Haagen-Dazs? That's the difference. If you will only take things in one specific format, but nothing else, that's religion. It's a specific thing. It's and all of that. Spirituality is the whole ice cream dessert. And if you don't even like ice cream, let's go for cookies or anything sweet. That's the thing, is we can all have our own version, as long as it's just not us. One of the biggest things that I found is self-righteousness was my issue. Because in belaboring the sins of some religious people, or people that, they talked about how good they were and how spiritual they were, and they went to church every Sunday and all of that stuff. But in belaboring them and belittling them and their sins, we felt superior in some way, and we could avoid looking at our own shortcomings. Sometimes it's like the second somebody says one thing wrong, nothing they say can be right. We condemn self-righteousness in others so well, but it's our own evil that we did every single day. If somebody else did something wrong, we need to get justice. But if I did something wrong, come on, you have to have compassion. It's that dual-edged sword of reality. As I said, AA requires you to basically be three things: willingness, honesty, and an open mind. AA doesn't have a closed mind. I can tell you I did. And when I stopped arguing, step two gently and gradually worked its way into my life. It wasn't one of those moments that some people speak of where I was standing on top of the mountain and the wind blew through my hair. Well, clearly because I don't have hair. But it wasn't one of those. It was one of those things where I started realizing in small senses some gifts that I had in my life that I hadn't taken an opportunity to appreciate. A lot of times the roadblocks to faith include defiance, indifference, prejudice, and self-sufficiency. With defiance, one of those things is the difference between belief and all of that is belief means reliance, not defiance. I rely upon God. I know when I was younger, I was taught when you really want something, you should pray. And I didn't really understand that. So one day my dad walked in and I was on my knees at my bedside and I was praying for a bike. My dad goes, "That's not how this works." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" That's not how it works. You have to go to church, you learn that that's not the way prayer works. I said, "Okay." So then I stole a bike and I asked for forgiveness. Clearly that wasn't the way I was supposed to work either. God is amazing, and I do call him God these days. It makes it more convenient. I don't know what name he likes to go by, but that's what he is in my book. It's my phone. I can put him as whatever contact I want to. But the thing is God is not Santa Claus. He doesn't give you what you want. He gives you what you need. And no time had I asked what God's will was for me. I had been telling what I thought it should be. I know a lot of times I have asked to win the lottery. And when I was drinking, I literally thought that was a great idea because I could pay more bar tabs. But then I realized that in a sense, God had been helping me win the lottery every time I drove home and didn't get a DUI. God had helped me win the lottery every time I drove home and didn't kill somebody. God had given me the chance to win the lottery every time that I was able to wake up from one of my drunken stupors. God helped me win the lottery every time I wasn't fired for being hungover at work. See, the thing about faith is it's all about quality, not quantity. I make a lot of meetings a week, number one, because I like to hear people's aspects. I am a big fan of literature. I like solution-based meetings. And the reason I like that is because too many times when people are giving their speech and sharing, they forget to talk about recovery. They only talk about all of the times they had out there. That's why I think qualifying is an awkward term for it. I think everybody's qualified to be in these rooms. It's what we do to stay in them. Quality is one of those things of when you have such a devout faith that you don't need proof. And there's people that go to church every single Sunday that still don't believe in God. And faith and belief, a lot of times people use the terms interchangeably. But they mean two different things. That's why they're two different words. Belief is an acceptance that something is true, while faith is a deeper level of trust or confidence, often in the absence of proof. I'll put that into context for some people in case you need it. I am a bigger individual. When I walk into a room and I see a chair, I have faith that it'll hold me up. When I sit in the chair and it's holding me, I believe that it can keep holding me up, but only because I'm already sitting in it. Faith and belief are two different things. The issue is, with belief, it's a state of mind. Having seen evidence, I now believe that this be true. Faith is a motivating force that allows action. It allows you to do something without yet knowing what the outcome is. And every day, or every moment that you have faith, you have the ability to do great things. When you are waiting for proof, and only then will believe, you're completely limiting yourself. If the Wright brothers waited for belief, we would never fly. But the thing with faith and belief is sometimes people stop having faith because they have hard times. But when everything seems to be coming at us and it seems like God is throwing stuff in our way, there's two things to know. A lot of times when I pray to God and I say, why are you putting me in all of these hard waters and why are you making it so hard? He says, because your enemies can't swim. And a lot of times when I ask God, why do you feel like throwing everything at me at the same time? It's all coming at once. He reminds me that airplanes take off into the wind, not with it. Every time God throws an opportunity at me, he's making me stronger so that I can swim an extra lap. Sometimes that extra lap is the difference between life and death. There's times that I will have struggles, but luckily when I call him, he's there. A lot of people use cell phones today, and some of them still have them underneath, and I think it's amazing. If you look on the 0 on the phone, underneath it has the letters OPER. It stands for operator. The odd part is if you press it, they're still there. It's kind of like God. We might not talk to him from time to time. We think that we're punishing him. In reality, we're punishing ourselves. You can call him anytime you want. He might not give you exactly what you want, but he'll give you what you need. You know, life is an amazingly awkward thing, but as long as we take faith and improve everything each day and put it into action, because faith without work is dead. If I take my faith and I put it to action and I work hard at it, I can be successful. All the successful people in the world, some of the biggest billionaires, say that the only thing that has them separated from everybody else is they do small, consistent efforts. That's all you have to do. One step at a time, one day at a time. Small, consistent efforts get the journey done. Doesn't matter how fast you go as long as you don't stop moving. Life's like an escalator. At the top of it is your recovery, your spiritual life, and everything else that's going right in your life. At the bottom of it is that pit of hell, the demons, the devils, and all that stuff that we had in the bottom. If you stop doing the steps, if you stop walking up the escalator, you'll realize you start to slowly go back down. It's true. Every single day that you are not working this program, you are having the program work against you. Because the program tells you that the first thing I have to do is I have to admit that I am powerless over alcohol and that my life has become unmanageable. And when I stop doing action, I start falling down. One of the biggest things they say is in order to get something done, you have to make a decision to do it. Decision's good, but decision without action is nothing. If 3 frogs are sitting on a log and one decides to jump, how many are on the log? 3. Decision's not an action. My name is Matt. I'm an alcoholic. If nobody's told you today, I love you. That's all I got.
All right.